You really thought I'd never show up again, didn't you? Olivia Bennet's voice trembled with a controlled fire as she held the cream-colored invitation in her hand, the embossed letters of Northgate High School's 10-year reunion catching the late afternoon light. The wind tugged at the hem of her sapphire blue dress as she stepped onto the polished driveway, the faint scent of freshly cut grass mixing with the warm undertone of the autumn air. Memories pressed against her ribs with the weight of years spent under Ethan Carter's sharp words and dismissive smirks. She remembered the endless nights of quiet struggle, the gallery projects abandoned at his insistence, the subtle digs masked as concern, the tiny victories snatched from a world that refused to acknowledge her potential. Each step toward the reunion doors was deliberate, a rhythm set by the pulse of determination coursing through her veins, the click of her sensible heels echoing softly against the marble steps. She paused just inside the grand foyer, the crystal chandeliers scattering prisms of light across the polished hardwood floor, and let her eyes sweep the room, noting the familiar faces, the elegant gowns, the muted hum of polite chatter that could so easily conceal envy and judgment. The scent of sandalwood and expensive cologne hung thick in the air, a subtle reminder of the world Ethan had once dominated, the world he thought would swallow her whole if she dared return. Olivia's breath steadied, her fingertips brushing the smooth silk of her dress, grounding herself in the present, in the quiet armor she had forged over years of rebuilding. Rowan Sinclair, her husband, appeared at the edge of the crowd, the epitome of composed strength, his tailored navy suit crisp against the golden glow of the chandelier. His hand extended to hers, a touch that anchored her confidence without words, a silent promise of support and shared triumph. She inhaled the mixture of perfume, polished wood, and ambient tension, each scent a layer in the tapestry of this moment, each detail sharpening her focus. Across the room, Ethan's gaze found her, the smirk of old entitlement slowly faltering as recognition collided with shock. Olivia's lips curved into a subtle, knowing smile, a quiet acknowledgement of the power she now carried, the control she had reclaimed, and the world she had rebuilt without him. The music swelled, echoing like a heartbeat, in the cavernous space, and as she allowed the soft luminescence of the chandeliers to highlight her poised figure, the room seemed to pause, caught between anticipation and the revelation to come, leaving the audience suspended in the moment just before the reckoning unfolds, the scene set for a confrontation that promises both justice and awe. Olivia moved through the crowd with measured steps, each footfall echoing softly against the polished hardwood, her sapphire blue gown brushing the floor with quiet elegance, the sheen of silk catching the warm glow of the chandeliers above. Conversations drifted past her like soft waves, laughter blending with the clinking of glass and the subtle strains of a string quartet tucked into the corner, yet she remained centered, aware of every glance and whisper. Her mind traced the arc of the years since the divorce, recalling the countless mornings she had stared at her reflection in a modest apartment mirror, tracing the outlines of dreams she thought had been erased, each setback sharpening the determination that now carried her through this room. The scent of polished marble and lightly perfumed air reminded her of the gala events she had once attended as a shadow, following Ethan Carter's lead, always polite, always restrained, never the woman she had wanted to be. Now, each movement was deliberate, a quiet assertion of presence, and she let her eyes flick to familiar faces, noting subtle shifts in posture and expression as the realization settled that this Olivia Bennet was no longer a version of the girl they remembered. Rowan Sinclair appeared at her side with effortless timing, a quiet presence that radiated strength and calm, his tailored navy suit impeccable against the warm lighting, a hand lightly brushing hers as if to remind her that she did not face the room alone. She inhaled, tasting the faint hint of vanilla and polished wood, grounding herself in the moment, in the rhythm of the space, in the power she had cultivated over years of work and careful planning. A gentle hum of music wrapped around the gathered alumni, each note amplifying the anticipation, and Olivia felt the familiar rush of adrenaline, the kind that had always preceded moments that demanded courage. Her gaze locked briefly with Ethan across the room, noting the twitch of his jaw, the subtle narrowing of his blue eyes as he measured a room he no longer controlled. Olivia's lips curved in a subtle, knowing smile, an acknowledgement of the quiet victory that had already begun to unfold. She moved closer to the center of the hall, navigating clusters of colleagues and acquaintances with poised grace, her posture straight, her chin lifted, every detail a signal of confidence and resilience. Rowan stayed just behind, a steadying presence, as the crowd parted subtly, drawn by the quiet intensity she exuded. In that suspended moment, with the chandeliers casting golden highlights on her hair and dress, the room seemed to pause, breaths held, conversations dimmed, all eyes inadvertently drawn to the woman who had rebuilt herself from fragments of the past, carrying an aura of calm power and unspoken triumph that promised the coming revelation of a story far from finished. Olivia stepped fully into the center of the grand reunion hall, the soft golden glow from the crystal chandeliers highlighting the precise folds of her sapphire blue gown, her eyes scanning the crowd with measured intensity as whispers began to ripple through the guests like a quiet current. Ethan Carter froze mid-step, his confident posture faltering as recognition and disbelief collided in his gaze. The smirk he had once worn with such assured arrogance now caught between surprise and uncertainty. Rowan Sinclair moved beside Olivia with calm precision, his tailored navy suit immaculately pressed, a subtle but unmistakable symbol of the life and power Olivia had rebuilt, his hand brushing hers in quiet solidarity that spoke volumes without a word. The music swelled faintly, a gentle string accompaniment that seemed to synchronize with the quickened pulse in the room as every eye turned toward Olivia, taking in the transformation from the young woman they had remembered to the poised, confident figure now commanding attention effortlessly. Ethan's eyes darted between Olivia and the man at her side, the unspoken realization dawning that the world she occupied now was entirely beyond his reach, constructed carefully over years of resilience, focus, and quiet strength. Olivia lifted her chin, allowing the light to catch the determined glint in her eyes, a subtle smile tracing her lips as if acknowledging the invisible thread of triumph connecting her past struggles to this very moment. Guests who had once whispered judgments now looked on with a mix of admiration and surprise, sensing the unspoken authority she carried, the aura of someone who had endured, rebuilt, and emerged stronger without ever needing to raise her voice. Rowan's presence reinforced the narrative silently, a reminder that Olivia was no longer navigating the world alone, that her victories were shared but her power unmistakably hers. Ethan took a cautious step back, the crowd parting instinctively as if to give her space to claim it, every movement deliberate, every glance composed, yet radiating an unshakable confidence that made the air itself seem to shift around her. Olivia's gaze met his for a brief, silent moment, a wordless assertion of her journey from shadow to prominence, of the life she had meticulously reconstructed far from his influence. The soft hum of conversation faded as attention naturally gravitated toward the woman at the center, the room collectively suspended in anticipation of what would unfold next, a breathless pause pregnant with unspoken acknowledgement of the power reversal now fully realized. Each detail, from the glint of the chandelier on the polished floor to the subtle scent of sandalwood in the air, reinforced the sensory impression of transformation, a cinematic tableau that captured the precise intersection of past humiliation and present triumph. Olivia allowed herself a final, slow breath, letting the composed strength settle fully into her posture, Rowan's supportive presence a quiet anchor, and as the collective gaze of the room remained fixed upon her, the scene lingered on the cusp of revelation, the suspense taut, promising the audience a story of justice, dignity, and empowered resurgence yet to be fully told. The soft murmur of the reunion continued around Olivia as she took a slow, deliberate step toward the refreshment table, each movement a statement of unspoken authority, her sapphire dress catching the light in subtle flashes that drew attention without a word. She felt the quiet shift in energy, the hushed exchanges and sidelong glances as the room absorbed her presence, a presence that radiated confidence and control, a stark contrast to the uncertain air Ethan now exuded. Rowan Sinclair remained a steadying presence at her side, his tailored navy suit sharp and unassuming, his hand lightly brushing hers in silent encouragement, a reminder that her victories were no longer solitary. Olivia allowed herself to savor the moment, noticing the careful arrangements of crystal glasses and polished silver trays, the soft glow of candles reflecting off the polished marble, the scent of fresh flowers and subtle perfume blending. With the faint aroma of fine leather from handbags and shoes, all sensory details grounding her in the tangible world even as her mind traced the journey that had brought her here. Ethan shifted uneasily near the center of the room, his gaze lingering on her with a mixture of disbelief and apprehension, his carefully composed demeanor beginning to unravel under the weight of realization that the woman he had once dismissed had transformed into someone entirely beyond his influence. Olivia's eyes met his for a fraction of a second, steady and unyielding, a silent acknowledgement of her resilience, the years of perseverance and quiet ambition that had sculpted this moment of subtle triumph. The music swelled softly, a backdrop of classical strings that seemed to underline the tension and elegance of the gathering, as she navigated past small clusters of former classmates and colleagues, exchanging polite nods and smiles that carried the authority of someone who had reclaimed their narrative. Rowan guided her gently yet unobtrusively, positioning her to command attention naturally, a silent cue that their combined presence was a force to be recognized without fanfare. Each detail, from the glint of light on polished floors to the delicate fragrance of orchids, heightened the sensory experience of the evening, emphasizing the contrast between past limitations and present empowerment. Olivia's movements were fluid, deliberate, each gesture measured, each glance precise, as she absorbed the reactions of those around her, the subtle shifts of posture and expression that marked recognition, admiration, and a hint of envy. In that suspended moment, the room seemed to tilt on the axis of possibility, a delicate balance between anticipation and revelation, as Olivia and Rowan silently communicated the culmination of years of quiet resilience and careful reinvention, setting the stage for the evening to unfold with the promise of full recognition and unspoken vindication. Olivia paused near the edge of the ballroom, allowing the warm amber light from the chandeliers to illuminate the subtle confidence in her posture, the soft rustle of her sapphire blue gown against the polished hardwood floor marking her deliberate presence. She could feel the weight of eyes upon her, the collective attention of former classmates and colleagues shifting imperceptibly as they registered the transformation she had undergone, the quiet power she now carried with effortless grace. Rowan Sinclair remained at her side, a steadying shadow, his calm presence a quiet reminder of the life she had meticulously rebuilt, the achievements earned through years of dedication, patience, and unwavering resolve. The soft notes of the string quartet seemed to underscore the tension, each chord resonating like a heartbeat through the expansive room, and Olivia moved with precision, her gaze scanning faces with a mixture of recognition and measured authority. Ethan Carter lingered near the center, his carefully maintained composure cracking ever so slightly as he observed the woman he had once underestimated, now radiating a presence that demanded both acknowledgement and respect. Olivia's lips curved into a subtle, knowing smile, the kind that spoke of triumph without the need for words, a quiet celebration of resilience that only she fully understood. The scent of polished wood, faint perfume, and autumn air filtered through the room, grounding her in the present as she moved effortlessly past small clusters of guests, nodding and exchanging greetings with poised courtesy that only enhanced her aura of confidence. Every gesture, from the slight tilt of her chin to the measured steps across the floor, reinforced the story of her journey from uncertainty to empowerment, each movement a deliberate signal of the strength she had cultivated over years of silent perseverance. The murmurs of admiration and surprise rippled through the crowd, subtle yet tangible, marking the unspoken recognition of her accomplishments, her reinvention, and the undeniable authority she now held. Rowan's presence provided a calm contrast, a silent reinforcement of partnership and shared success, while Olivia allowed herself a slow, controlled breath, feeling the room respond to the energy she projected, the combination of poise, determination, and grace capturing the attention of every guest without a single word spoken. Across the room, Ethan's blue eyes flickered with uncertainty and disbelief, the realization of the changed dynamic settling on him like a physical weight, as he registered for the first time the full measure of Olivia's transformation, the life she had built on her own terms, and the quiet power she now wielded with effortless elegance. Each step she took toward the center, each subtle glance at those observing, further solidified the moment, the ballroom holding its collective breath as the tension built, the anticipation of what would unfold next hanging in the air, a poised, cinematic tableau of quiet victory, resilience, and the promise of revelation yet to come. Olivia paused for a heartbeat at the entrance to the central ballroom, letting the soft golden light of the chandeliers wash over her, highlighting the confident lines of her posture and the subtle shimmer of her sapphire gown as it moved with each deliberate step. The hum of conversation and laughter swirled around her, yet she felt an almost serene clarity, a sense of control over the room that contrasted sharply with the tension she sensed radiating from Ethan Carter across the polished hardwood floor. Rowan Sinclair walked beside her, his presence steady, a quiet reinforcement of the years of effort, planning, and resilience that had brought Olivia to this exact moment, a visual testament to the life she had rebuilt and the strength she now carried. Her gaze scanned familiar faces, some frozen in polite surprise, others exchanging subtle, whispered acknowledgments of the transformation that had occurred, the measured poise and effortless authority Olivia now exuded demanding attention without a single word spoken. The scent of polished wood, faint floral perfume, and the delicate aroma of hors d'oeuvres being carried past mingled with the soft strains of a string quartet, heightening the sensory awareness of the moment as she moved through the room with calm precision, each step measured, each gesture deliberate. Ethan's eyes remained fixed on her, his carefully constructed demeanor showing the first signs of faltering as he registered the quiet, undeniable power she now possessed, the combination of personal achievement, composure, and the subtle but unmistakable support of Rowan. Olivia allowed herself a small, controlled smile, a silent acknowledgement of the journey she had undertaken to arrive here, a life of independent victories and hard-won confidence that made her presence magnetic and undeniable. Rowan adjusted his tie lightly, the movement unobtrusive, yet grounding, a signal of partnership and shared understanding, while Olivia's eyes swept across the room again, noting subtle changes in posture, the way conversations paused mid-sentence, the slight tilt of heads as attention shifted toward her. Each detail, the reflection of chandelier crystals on polished surfaces, the soft glow of amber lighting, the interplay of sound and scent in the expansive hall, reinforced the sense of presence and authority Olivia now carried effortlessly. She inhaled slowly, letting the calm assurance settle fully into her movements. Every step forward a declaration of reclaimed narrative and personal power, the collective anticipation of the gathered alumni creating a taut, cinematic tension in the room. Ethan took a hesitant step back, his previous confidence waning as he confronted the reality of the woman who had once been the quiet, subdued figure in the background, now radiating strength, grace, and the unmistakable aura of someone who had emerged triumphant. Olivia and Rowan continued their measured advance through the ballroom, a seamless display of poise and partnership, the air around them charged with the unspoken understanding that the evening had shifted irrevocably, the stage set for revelations that would echo long after the last chord of the quartet faded, leaving the audience suspended in a moment of quiet, powerful anticipation. Olivia moved deeper into the ballroom, each step measured and deliberate, the soft gleam of her sapphire gown catching the ambient light as the crowd subtly shifted to accommodate her presence. She could feel the collective gaze of former classmates settling upon her, a mixture of surprise, curiosity, and quiet admiration flowing through the room like an invisible current. Rowan Sinclair remained a quiet anchor at her side, his posture calm, his gaze attentive, every gesture reinforcing the unspoken strength and authority Olivia now carried effortlessly. The music of the string quartet swelled in gentle waves, the notes floating above the murmured conversations, drawing the room into a shared sense of anticipation that seemed to resonate with the subtle power Olivia exuded. Ethan Carter remained near the center, his carefully maintained composure beginning to fracture as he registered the full transformation of the woman he had once underestimated, his eyes widening slightly with the dawning awareness of the influence and confidence she now wielded. Olivia allowed herself a soft, controlled smile, the kind that acknowledged her journey from uncertainty to mastery of her own narrative, a silent declaration of triumph that needed no words. She moved past clusters of alumni with fluid grace, nodding and offering measured pleasantries that conveyed both warmth and undeniable authority, each motion reinforcing the contrast between the hesitant, uncertain figure Ethan remembered and the poised, commanding presence before him now. The scent of polished wood, subtle floral notes, and the faint aroma of hors d'oeuvres filled the space, layering the sensory experience and heightening the impact of Olivia's appearance as she advanced toward the center of attention. Ethan's eyes followed her every step, a mixture of disbelief and reluctant respect emerging as he confronted the reality that the woman standing before him had completely reclaimed her space in the world, her achievements and self-assurance apparent in every line of her posture, every steady gaze, every subtle movement. Rowan's hand lightly brushed Olivia's as they approached a small gathering near the balcony, a quiet gesture of partnership and support that underscored the narrative of shared success and resilience, reinforcing the impression of Olivia as a figure of both independence and collaborative strength. The golden lighting from the chandeliers above highlighted the soft waves of her hair, the elegant folds of her gown, and the calm confidence radiating from her every movement, creating a tableau that drew the eye and held attention with the promise of a story poised for revelation. The murmurs of recognition and subtle gasps of admiration followed her progress, yet Olivia remained focused, her awareness of every glance and whisper sharpening her control of the evening. In that suspended moment, the room seemed to collectively inhale, the delicate tension of anticipation, recognition, and unspoken acknowledgement weaving together around her, setting the stage for the next unfolding chapter of her quiet but undeniable victory, a testament to resilience, careful strategy, and the understated power of presence. Olivia reached the center of the room, her movements calm yet deliberate, the subtle glimmer of her sapphire gown catching the warm light from the chandeliers and drawing the gaze of everyone in the ballroom. Conversations paused, glasses were still, and the gentle hum of the string quartet seemed to fade as the collective attention of the guests shifted toward her, a silent acknowledgement of her presence and the transformation she had undergone since the years of quiet struggle. Rowan Sinclair remained at her side, a quiet, steadfast presence, his hand lightly brushing hers in a gesture that reinforced both support and partnership, highlighting the balance of independence and connection that Olivia now commanded effortlessly. The polished marble floors reflected the golden light, adding a soft glow around her as she took a measured step forward, her eyes scanning the room, observing the subtle shifts in posture, the whispers of recognition, and the fleeting expressions of admiration and surprise. Ethan Carter lingered near the far edge of the hall, his confident composure faltering as he took in the sight of the woman he had once underestimated, now fully embodying the strength, poise, and quiet authority that came from years of deliberate rebuilding and self-determination. Olivia's gaze met his for a brief, controlled moment, a silent statement of resilience and mastery over her own narrative, the faint curve of her lips conveying both acknowledgement and serene triumph. The room seemed to collectively hold its breath, the soft strains of music, the subtle scent of polished wood and fresh florals, and the delicate murmur of the crowd blending into a moment of heightened anticipation, the tension of expectation and revelation palpable in the air. Each step Olivia took was a statement of regained authority, every gesture a reminder of the distance she had traveled from her earlier self, and the meticulous attention to detail in her demeanor, posture, and expression made it clear that she was in full control of both space and perception. Rowan's presence added depth to the tableau, a calm anchor amidst the shifting energy of the room, signaling partnership without diminishing her autonomy, and the subtle interplay of light, shadow, and reflection on the polished surfaces emphasized the cinematic quality of the scene. Guests adjusted their focus, conversations softened, and subtle nods and glances communicated the unspoken recognition of Olivia's achievements, the elegance and strength she carried as effortlessly as the light danced across her gown. Ethan's eyes, once sharp with superiority, now betrayed a flicker of disbelief and reluctant respect, the unspoken acknowledgement that the woman standing before him was no longer the one he had controlled or underestimated. Olivia inhaled slowly, letting the soft floral and woodsy scents ground her in the moment. Each breath reinforcing the calm power she radiated, the quiet assertion of presence that drew the attention and admiration of every person in the room, leaving them poised on the edge of the unfolding story, aware that the night's revelations were only beginning to reveal themselves, and that her journey of resilience, poise, and subtle triumph would leave an indelible impression long after the final note of the music faded. Olivia lingered at the edge of the grand ballroom, the golden light from the chandeliers casting a warm glow over the polished floor as she adjusted her posture with deliberate elegance, every line of her frame conveying calm assurance and quiet authority. Conversation swirled around her, a blend of laughter, polite murmurs, and the faint strains of the string quartet, yet she felt a distinct shift in the room's energy, the collective attention subtly drawn toward her with each measured step she took forward. Rowan Sinclair remained at her side, steady and composed, his presence reinforcing the careful balance of support and independence that defined their partnership, his tailored navy suit perfectly contrasting the deep sapphire of her gown. Olivia's gaze swept the room, observing familiar faces frozen in varying states of surprise, curiosity, and subtle admiration, the unspoken acknowledgement of her transformation weaving through the ambient hum of voices. Ethan Carter lingered near the center, his carefully constructed poise faltering as he realized the woman before him had completely redefined her presence, every gesture, every glance, and every controlled breath a testament to the years of determination, resilience, and meticulous effort that had carried her to this point. The scent of polished wood, fresh flowers, and faintly spiced candles mingled with the warm ambient lighting, creating an atmosphere thick with anticipation, heightening the tension that coiled around Olivia's poised form. Each movement she made was precise, a symphony of measured steps, graceful gestures, and subtle expressions that spoke volumes without uttering a single word, the quiet power she exuded holding the room in suspended attention. Rowan's hand brushed lightly against hers, a silent signal of reassurance and shared triumph, emphasizing the strength of her autonomy while underscoring their partnership in quiet but unmistakable terms. Olivia allowed herself a controlled smile, her eyes meeting Ethan's for a brief, steady moment, conveying both acknowledgement and the serene triumph of someone who had reclaimed her narrative and space in the world. The soft murmur of the crowd seemed to ripple around her like a gentle current, a testament to the impact of her presence, as she moved with deliberate grace through clusters of alumni, nodding with polished poise and confident composure, each step reinforcing her authority and subtly reshaping the perceptions of those who had once underestimated her. The chandeliers reflected softly off the polished hardwood floors, and the ambient notes of the string quartet rose and fell, intertwining with the faint clink of glassware and the subtle scent of perfume and floral arrangements, amplifying the cinematic texture of the scene. Every detail, from the careful placement of her hands to the serene lift of her chin, served as a quiet proclamation of her resilience, the room responding in kind to the magnetic poise she projected. Ethan's gaze lingered, disbelief mingled with a reluctant respect, as he confronted the undeniable reality that Olivia Bennet was no longer the subdued, overlooked figure he once assumed he knew. In that suspended, taut moment, the room collectively leaned into her presence, the anticipation of the unfolding evening thick and palpable, a tableau of elegance, empowerment, and the poised promise of revelations yet to come, the quiet assertion of her reclaimed power drawing every eye and thought into the orbit of her carefully crafted return. Olivia paused near the grand staircase, the soft golden glow of the chandeliers highlighting the delicate folds of her sapphire blue gown as she surveyed the room with composed authority, her eyes tracing the subtle shifts in posture, the slight turns of heads, and the hushed whispers that rippled like a current through the gathered alumni. Rowan Sinclair remained silently at her side, his calm presence a quiet counterpoint to the energy radiating from Olivia, his tailored navy suit emphasizing the understated elegance and power of their shared presence. The ambient hum of conversation intertwined with the gentle strains of the string quartet, each note amplifying the tension and anticipation that hung palpably in the air, the polished hardwood reflecting the golden light in intricate patterns that danced with each measured step she took. Ethan Carter stood across the room, his once confident gaze faltering as he absorbed the sight of the woman he had underestimated, the full extent of her transformation apparent in the graceful poise, subtle smiles, and quiet command of attention she now wielded. Olivia allowed herself a brief, controlled smile, a silent acknowledgement of the years of effort, determination, and quiet resilience that had brought her to this precise moment, her journey visible in every poised movement, every measured gesture, every calm, self-assured glance. The room seemed to shift around her, the murmurs of recognition and admiration weaving into the soft fabric of the music as she navigated past clusters of guests, offering polite nods and glances that conveyed warmth and composed authority simultaneously. The scent of polished wood, faint florals, and subtle cologne layered the air, adding depth to the sensory experience of the evening, heightening the impression of Olivia as a figure both commanding and elegant, a presence that drew attention without demanding it. Rowan's hand brushed lightly against hers as they moved, a quiet reassurance of partnership and unspoken support, reinforcing the narrative of deliberate, measured triumph without diminishing the independence she now fully embodied. Each subtle motion, from the tilt of her chin to the calm sway of her gown with each step, served as a testament to the painstaking reconstruction of her life, a visual symphony of confidence, resilience, and reclaimed dignity that left the observers, particularly Ethan, momentarily speechless. As she approached the center of the hall, the chandeliers above catching the shimmer of her gown, Olivia allowed a moment for the collective attention of the room to settle fully upon her, the ambient light, music, and murmured anticipation converging into a cinematic tableau that poised the unfolding narrative at the edge of revelation, signaling the beginning of the evening's pivotal moments and the quiet assertion of her power and presence that no one could ignore. Olivia paused at the threshold of the grand staircase, the soft golden illumination from the chandeliers casting a luminous glow across her sapphire blue gown, each delicate fold reflecting the light in subtle, shifting patterns as she drew herself upright with quiet confidence. The room seemed to respond to her presence, conversations dimming, the hum of polite laughter and clinking glasses giving way to a focused awareness that radiated toward her with every measured step she took. Rowan Sinclair remained steadfast at her side, his tailored navy suit immaculate, a silent yet powerful reinforcement of the partnership they had cultivated, his calm demeanor balancing and enhancing the quiet authority Olivia exuded. The string quartet's notes drifted gently through the air, their rising and falling cadence underscoring the tension and anticipation that coiled within the space, each note harmonizing with the rhythm of her poised movements. Olivia's eyes swept across the assembly, noting subtle shifts in expression, the quickening breaths, and the fleeting glances of surprise and admiration, all acknowledging the transformation she had undergone since the years of subtle, relentless rebuilding. Ethan Carter stood slightly apart, his composure faltering as the full realization settled upon him. The confident air he had once carried now tinged with uncertainty as he observed the woman who had risen beyond the limitations he had imagined. Olivia allowed herself a calm, controlled smile, the kind that conveyed triumph without the need for words, a quiet assertion of self-assured presence, and the culmination of years of careful, deliberate effort. The ambient sense of polished wood, faint floral arrangements, and subtle hints of cologne blended with the warm glow of lighting, creating an atmosphere charged with sensory richness and cinematic intensity as she advanced further into the center of the room. Each motion she made, from the precise tilt of her chin to the soft, purposeful sway of her gown, reinforced her authority, elegance, and the narrative of resilience she embodied. Rowan's steady proximity offered silent affirmation and shared success, enhancing her composed aura without diminishing her individual power. The murmurs and whispered recognitions of the gathered guests created a soft, continuous undercurrent of acknowledgement, drawing attention to her presence as she navigated the ballroom with measured grace, each step reinforcing the story of her transformation. The chandeliers overhead reflected on the polished hardwood floor in intricate, shifting patterns, each light catching the shimmer of her dress and adding to the impression of a cinematic tableau, the room holding its collective breath in suspended anticipation. Olivia's gaze met Ethan's briefly, firm yet composed, conveying a wordless declaration of regained authority, quiet mastery of her own narrative, and the subtle but undeniable triumph that now defined her presence. The space seemed to contract around her with focused attention, the combination of poised movement, sensory detail, and the soft, steady hum of admiration setting the stage for the unfolding revelations and ensuring the quiet but unmistakable assertion of her reclaimed power lingered in the room long after each observer's eyes had met hers. Olivia and Rowan stood together in the center of the ballroom, the soft golden light of the chandeliers cascading over them, illuminating the quiet authority and composed elegance that radiated from Olivia. The murmurs and whispered exchanges among the guests had grown quieter, the ambient hum of conversation pausing as the subtle energy in the room shifted toward the couple. Olivia's sapphire gown shimmered with each measured movement, reflecting the polished hardwood floors and the soft glint of crystal glassware, reinforcing the visual impression of poise and meticulous control. Rowan's calm presence beside her, his tailored navy suit perfectly pressed, accentuated the balance of strength and partnership, each subtle gesture conveying shared success without diminishing the autonomy Olivia had meticulously reclaimed. Across the room, Ethan Carter's composure had all but dissipated, his confident posture replaced by an uncertain awareness as he absorbed the full measure of Olivia's transformation and the unspoken influence she now held. Olivia's gaze swept deliberately across the room, noting subtle nods, quiet expressions of surprise, and the fleeting glances of recognition that underscored her journey of self-reinvention. The soft strains of the string quartet wrapped around the polished marble and wood surfaces, blending with the delicate scent of flowers and the faint hint of cologne in the air, creating an atmosphere thick with anticipation, reflection, and quiet awe. Each step Olivia took, each gentle shift in posture or tilt of her chin, emphasized the narrative of resilience, careful planning, and the reclamation of her personal power, drawing attention effortlessly while maintaining serene composure. Rowan's hand brushed hers subtly, a silent reinforcement of their partnership and shared triumph, as Olivia allowed herself a controlled, knowing smile that conveyed calm satisfaction and quiet victory. The room seemed to collectively lean into the presence she projected, every light reflection, every subtle sound of movement amplifying the sense of authority and elegance that she carried, marking the stark contrast between her current self and the woman Ethan had once thought he knew. The interplay of warm lighting, polished surfaces, and attentive eyes created a cinematic tableau, the space suspended in a moment of poised anticipation, where every observer recognized the quiet assertion of Olivia's reclaimed dignity and influence. Her subtle movements guided the attention of the crowd, creating a rhythm of grace, power, and serene command that resonated through the expansive hall. Ethan's eyes reflected the reluctant acknowledgement of her transformation, while Rowan's steady calm anchored the scene, the couple's presence together signaling the culmination of years of careful resilience and strategic growth. In that suspended moment, the soft murmur of awe, the glimmer of chandeliers, and the scent of polished wood and florals wove together into a sensory symphony, reinforcing the quiet but undeniable reality that Olivia had fully reclaimed her space, her narrative, and her power in the eyes of everyone gathered, leaving the room poised on the edge of the revelations yet to unfold. Olivia and Rowan paused at the center of the grand ballroom, the soft golden glow of the chandeliers reflecting off the polished hardwood and the delicate shimmer of her sapphire blue gown, creating a tableau that seemed to freeze the room in a moment of poised anticipation. The hum of conversation and the gentle strains of the string quartet softened around them, every guest subtly drawn into the gravity of the scene, their eyes following Olivia with a mixture of admiration, surprise, and quiet respect. She held her head high, her posture the embodiment of calm authority, each breath measured, each gesture deliberate, a reflection of the years of careful rebuilding and personal growth that had led to this precise instant. Rowan's presence beside her was both grounding and reinforcing. His tailored navy suit crisp, his gaze steady, conveying silent partnership and unwavering support, enhancing the quiet power Olivia projected without diminishing her autonomy. Ethan Carter remained across the room, his confident demeanor now faltering. The realization of the woman before him and the life she had cultivated settling heavily in his expression, his blue eyes flickering with disbelief and reluctant acknowledgement. Olivia allowed herself a slow, controlled smile, a soft lift at the corners of her lips that spoke of triumph and serenity, a quiet but unmistakable declaration that the narrative of her life was firmly in her own hands. The room seemed to hold its collective breath, the ambient lighting casting intricate reflections on the polished surfaces, the soft scent of fresh florals and subtle cologne layering the air with an elegant richness that heightened the cinematic intensity of the moment. Every subtle movement, from the tilt of her chin to the gentle sway of her gown with each measured step, reinforced her regained authority and the deliberate projection of poise, resilience, and sophistication. The guests shifted quietly, their murmurs softened into acknowledgement, the faint glimmer of impressed expressions reflecting the unspoken recognition of her journey and accomplishment. The contrast between the poised woman before them and the past they remembered strikingly apparent. Rowan's hand brushed against hers, a quiet, grounding touch, the subtle connection emphasizing the shared triumph without overshadowing the independence she carried. Olivia's gaze swept the room once more, absorbing the collective attention and subtly shaping the energy of the hall, each glance and measured not a masterful assertion of presence, elegance, and control. Ethan's posture stiffened slightly, his lips parted in silent disbelief as he confronted the undeniable reality that Olivia Bennet had transformed beyond his comprehension, a vision of poise, resilience, and quiet mastery that no word or gesture could diminish. The soft music, the golden illumination, the reflective surfaces, and the subtle interplay of scents combined to create a heightened sensory tableau, a cinematic moment of stillness that captured the culmination of years of perseverance, strategy, and self-reclamation. Olivia stood with serene composure, her slight, knowing smile. The final punctuation in this carefully orchestrated moment, the room captivated, the energy taut with anticipation, and the subtle, unspoken triumph she radiated, ensuring that every observer would remember this as the instant her quiet victory became undeniable, the ending of one chapter and the poised beginning of another.